Hello everyone, welcome back to Isadora. It's really good to be back. Hope you're having a good week. I hope you all had a really good Valentine's Day, and I think this Valentine's Day was what prompted me to actually do this video, because what I realized about it is about that celebration is that a lot of people feel pressured. It's a time that makes people feel really pressured about what they have or who they have in their lives, or do you understand? So a lot of people feel a bit pressured about what they have and what they don't have, most especially in these days of like social media, and everybody's flaunting one thing or the other on maybe Instagram or TikTok or Facebook, whatever it is, whatever medium it is. So people tend to flaunt a lot of things, and other people that feel like they don't have it, I'm even talking in general at this point, not even so much the Valentine's Day gift, but I mean that season, or the season did bring out a lot of insecurities in people, right? But however, generally a lot of people tend to look at other people, especially in these days of social media, and make comparisons with their lives, like, okay, this is what I have, this is what I've achieved, this is what I still want to achieve, or this is what I haven't achieved. So people make a lot of comparisons, and sometimes we downplay ourselves because we're looking at what other people display about themselves. Do you understand? So people make a lot of comparisons with other people. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but what I'm saying is, don't envy other people. See, sometimes like everybody else, do you understand? You get to a point in life where you feel like, okay, I should have achieved this, I should have achieved that, do you understand? And then when you see people younger or your age range and they've achieved all those things, you kind of feel bad. Like I said, especially in these days of social media where people flaunt all sorts of things, and then you think, why is this thing not working for me? I'm working hard, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, do you understand? Let me tell you this, and as crazy as it sounds, you're exactly where you're supposed to be in life. I know that sounds really crazy, so please let me explain. What I mean by that is that everything happens for a reason, and life is full of lessons, right? Sometimes we're in a particular position in life. We might not have the perfect job. We might not have the perfect home. We might not be earning the perfect amount we want to, but there's a reason for it. And I think what I'm trying to say is, sometimes it's a lesson. Sometimes there's a reason. Find out what that lesson is, because until you learn that lesson, you may not be able to move on from that phase in your life. Find out what the reason is, because until you work on that reason, you may not be able to move on from that phase of your life, if that makes any sense. So sometimes we're in situations either to learn a lesson or for a particular reason. So as much as you're not where you want to be and you'd like to have more, you're exactly where you're supposed to be in this moment. What is important is that you find out why you're there and what you can do about it, if that makes any sense. So what I'm trying to say is, sometimes we envy all those people, we envy these things we see, or maybe on Instagram or TikTok or whatever it is. People have achieved this, people have achieved that. We haven't, we're not there yet, we're not where we want to be. See, the thing is, sometimes these people you're envying and you think they have it all, they would give their right arm to be in your situation. Whilst you think they have everything and they're happy and whatnot, you understand? Sometimes, just for even a day, they would give their right arm, give their head to actually be in your situation. I know that sounds completely crazy. Like, how would somebody that has houses and cars and whatnot be in, maybe a situation where they don't have? Because peace. Sometimes you can go to bed at night and sleep. They have to go to bed. For instance, if you flaunted one car on Instagram or whatever it is, after a while that wears out. People expect you to start to achieve more. Do you understand? So they're sometimes under constant pressure. You can't always envy people, because see, everybody, our lives are different. For some people, you envy them because maybe whoever it is they're seeing, or do you understand, or whoever it is they're dating keeps spending on them, buying things for them. For some other people, other people's money works for them. For some people, it doesn't work like that. I once knew a lady that a man bought her like a luxury car on bank loan, and then the bank was chasing him around. Do you understand? Boy, he bought it for her. none of her businesses has ever really tried. Do you understand? But people keep doing stuff for her and she has a lot, which is not her own money. For some people, it doesn't work like that for them. Do you understand? It doesn't, no matter how much more beautiful you think you are, no matter how much more intelligent, sometimes, and for some people, it's their own money that works for them. They would have a 9 to 5 where they're being paid millions, and at the end of the day, they would realize that they haven't actually used the money for anything. However, let those same people start a little business, do you understand, on the side, and you'll be surprised how it will explode. So we're all different people. That's why mostly the reason why you can't envy other people or what they have. Yes, sometimes it does get to you. For instance, I don't really look at social media. I'm not much of a social media person, but I think we're all humans, right? And things get to us. The thing that gets to me with social media is, especially with Instagram, like, Instagram is a place where people just want to look at fun stuff, and do you understand? So every time I want to post a video, which my videos are more of like the serious type of topics and everything, and I see stuff on Instagram, it makes me feel like, oh, should I be posting? Luckily, I have like other channels like YouTube and whatnot, do you understand? And I feel like that's more my kind of topics, right? But every time I want to post on Instagram, and for whatever reason I have flicked through a few pages, I cannot feel insecure about that. Like, should I really be posting this? People don't want to see this serious stuff. People want to have fun. Do you understand? Anyway, let me tell you a little story, right? And it's supposed to be a true story. Like, it's from this series. It's called The Crown. It's like a depiction of the British royal family, right? So if you've watched it, obviously you can resonate with this. But if you haven't, let me tell you the story. So, the king, right? Of England, obviously. So anyway, the king, he got to a point in his life where he was feeling a bit underachieved. He was feeling like he could achieve more with his life. Do you understand? Like he hadn't done enough except for just sit around and call out orders and whatnot. Now, you know how the universe works, right? Whatever you're thinking about, maybe good or bad, it gives you more of it. So what happened was, it happened to be a time when these astronauts, for the first time, they were landing on the moon. Now, the king used to be like a pilot himself, do you understand? So he used to fly as well. So obviously that hit home in a different way, kind of thing, you know. So they had landed on the moon, and he followed the process back to back. It was being shown on TV and everything. So he was following the process back to back, and the more he watched it, the more underachieved he felt, the more out of sync he felt, the more he felt like he hadn't done enough with his life, that he could be doing more as opposed to just sitting around and calling out orders and just being a king or whatever. So when this astronauts landed on the moon, he watched it and it made him feel so down. Do you understand? He started to look at them like gods, like they were achieving something he really, do you understand, would have loved to achieve in his life. He looked at them like, do you understand? This was the first time they were making history. It was a legacy. Do you understand? So he really envied them, like he really, really wanted to be in their shoes, right? So there was this new priest in town and whatnot, you understand? And I'm trying to be mindful of the time, by the way. So there was this new priest in town, but I'm not going to rush. So there was this new priest in town, and he had newly come into town, and at that point, so he had invited some other pastors and priests from other parishes, and so they sat around. It was like a small retreat, and then they invited the king over, and they sat him down. Like obviously they wanted some wise words from him, he being the king of England, obviously. So they sat him down and they started talking about okay, so he asked them and said, so what do you guys do when you come together this way or whatever it is? And the priest had said to him, obviously the others as well, they were trying to explain to him. So he said, well, sometimes we feel like, you know how a writer will have a writer's block. So sometimes they go through like a spiritual block, you know, and they feel stuck. So when that happens, they all come together for a retreat. They would sit around and talk about, you know, what they can achieve, and they will talk about each person will talk about their own experiences. They will learn from each of them. So they sit around, they talk, and that might motivate them, do you understand, to further their walk with God. So as they were talking to him, the king was kind of like almost rolling his eyes, and so they said to him, so what do you think about that? He was irritated. He just said to them like, I don't understand why you guys all sit here doing nothing with your lives and just sitting around and talking about achievements and whatnot and whatnot and whatnot. You know, whilst you're sitting down and just talking your lives away, some people are out there achieving things. Like these astronauts, they just landed on the moon and they are out there, they're making things happen, whilst you guys are just sitting around and talking and blabbing and whatnot. He almost kind of like insulted them, but good thing was they understood him. They really didn't take much of an offense. Why? Because, you know, in life I've learned something, that when people treat you badly, when people speak rudely to you, sometimes it's not really about you, it's about them, you know. So the only reason he had reacted that way towards them was because of how he was feeling. It was what he was going through. He took it out on them. Do you understand? Thank God they didn't take it really personal. In that moment, they couldn't even talk. They were so surprised as to how he'd spoken to them and everything. So he kind of insulted them and he walked out, and, you know, they were all stunned. They just looked at him. But really, it was about him. It wasn't really about them. He insulted them because of how he was feeling deep within. Anyway, long story short, these astronauts were back to Earth. And the queen had invited them because she knew how the king was obsessed with meeting up with them, with the whole process of them landing on the moon and everything. So she had invited them over to the palace, and when she told the king, he was ecstatic. Oh my God. He was jittery. He didn't know what to do. It was like he was meeting a god. There were 3 of them. So it was like he was meeting this demigod. You know, he looks at them like demigods, like they had achieved something a lot of people could not. Oh yeah, which is true. And they had made legacy. Do you understand? They had made a name. He literally wanted to worship them. So the queen invited them over to the palace, and so the day they arrived at the palace, they had taken a tour of the palace. The king could not even go out to meet them, so he had written down all those questions he had for them. He had written down all those things. He erased it, wrote it again, erased it, wrote it again. Do you understand? Just because there was something he was expecting from them. He wanted to be in that moment with them. So he was trying to look for the right way to ask the questions. So he had written the questions about 3 or 4 times. Anyway, so the time came, and they were summoned into the king's office, his chambers or whatever it is. So they sat down and he said to them, okay, so he was really jittery. He could hardly breathe. He couldn't breathe. It was like he was sitting in front of gods. Do you understand? So he sat down and he was like, okay, so I wrote down some questions for you guys. Like, okay, can I just ask you, how did it feel? What was going through your mind when you went up there? What was going through your mind? How did that feel? And the 3 men kind of looked at each other, you know, a bit off. And I kind of said, well, I mean, it was all really technical. We had to follow a lot of instructions, and then we had to fly the spaceship or aircraft or whatever it is, the spacecraft, and we had to fly the spacecraft, and everything was very technical. There was really nothing to it. Okay. So it felt like, okay, maybe he hadn't asked the question properly, so he rephrased it, and it was like, so what did you see up there? What was your experience when you landed? What was your experience? What was there? What did you feel when you got there? What did you see? Again, they were like blank. So they were just like, oh well, there was nothing there. It was just space. It was just empty space. At this point, the king was getting a bit frustrated, not with them, mostly with himself. Like, he felt like maybe he wasn't asking the right question. So he went on to tell them a little story about himself, how he used to fly and how he felt like they had achieved something, how it was a legacy and everything. And these men were just sitting there like he was speaking a totally different language. They weren't feeling the whole thing. Do you understand? For them, it wasn't even like they had achieved much, you know, because they were back to reality now. So one of them said, oh, king, yes, I remember something. And he was all ears, like his ears, like, do you understand? He was all ears, like, okay, maybe now they will tell me something. So the guy said, when we were going, we kept hearing a sound like thump, thump, thump. And the king was like, thump, yeah, thump. Okay, so what was that sound? And the guy said, well, it was the water cooler. at this point, seriously, he was so frustrated, and he just said to them, you know what? Do you guys have any questions you want to ask me? And this was when this men got really, really excited, and they said to him, yes, King, we do. Yeah, do you, okay, yeah, so we have a question. They were so excited compared to the way they were feeling before, like really blank, and it was like they didn't understand what was going on. So they were excited, and they said, so how does it feel to live in a palace? Can you imagine that? Like, that was what was exciting to them. They said to him, how does it feel to live in a palace? Don't forget, they are taking a tour of the palace before they met with the king. So for them, this was like, how does it feel being a human being living in this palace? This place is huge. This place is humongous, and a whole country worshiping you, serving you, listening to you, abiding by your rules. How does that feel? I don't know if I've made a lot of sense. Whilst he was envying them, whilst he was feeling underachieved, whilst he was feeling less of himself, they were envying him. I don't know if I'm making any sense. That's why sometimes the people you think have achieved so much, the people you look at as those demigods, like you, and the people you look at and you downplay yourself, sometimes, even for a moment, they would like to be in your shoes. Because, see, you can't downplay yourself. Like I said, wherever you are in life is where you should be in that moment. It might not be great, well, to your understanding, but everything happens for a reason. You are uniquely made. There is no two of you. That's why you cannot downplay yourself. Your eyes, your smile, your touch, your look, the way you speak, it's uniquely you. Nobody else can be like that. Nobody else can achieve that. It's you. Why not make it work? You can't downplay yourself. Whilst you think they have it all, like I said before, sometimes when you flaunted a house and you flaunted 3 cars, after like a year, people expect to see more, so they're under constant pressure. You that you feel you don't have as much, sometimes you get to go to bed and sleep at night. They don't. They're thinking of the next process, the next thing to show off, the next thing to buy, the next thing to, do you understand? Because however it is you catch your audience, you have to keep them. So they're constantly thinking of the next thing to do, the next best thing. You get to go to bed and sleep. As much as you would love those things, and you would get there if you know what works for you. Like I said, some people's money does not work for them. Other people's money works for them. Other people's money does not work for them. Your money has to work for you. Do you understand? So you have to find what works for you. You have to find what will make you succeed. Most of the time is what you're passionate about, and that doesn't really feel like work. So I guess that's what I'm trying to say. Don't envy other people. Yes, I get it. We're all humans. It gets to us sometimes that we're not achieving as much. But we have to find the reason why. And that's exactly what we need to work on. I love you all. Have a beautiful, beautiful week. Stay blessed. Peace. Namaste.